Today in this session, we shall discuss on the topic study skills, note taking and note making. This topic is very useful topic, not only for the teachers, even for the students and for everyone who is in the modern world. We are living in the modern world where there is explosion of knowledge around us. The information is multiplying every day. And if the teachers and students don't update themselves with the available information, they will become outdated. So, in order to be in touch with entire information that is available around us, we should be updating ourselves, whether you are a teacher or a student. It is a material for this purpose, for improving your knowledge and becoming updated. So, in this, whether it is a student or a teacher, should update one's own knowledge. The learners, in order to acquire information through their own efforts, a careful study of available printed material is required, apart from listening to the lectures, attending seminars, talks over radio, television, etc. So, whether it is listening or studying from printed material, we have to acquire information through these sources. Knowledge improve చేసుకోవాలంటే ఏమిటి మార్గాలు? పుస్తకాలు చదవాలి, అందులో ఉన్న ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ను బాగా మనసుకు ఎక్కించుకోవాలి. నెంబర్ 1. లేదు, మంచి లెక్చర్సు, సెమినార్సు, ఏదైనా రేడియోలో, టెలివిజన్లో మంచి టాక్స్ వస్తూ ఉంటే వాటిని వినాలి. ఎక్స్పర్ట్స్ చెప్పేటువంటి విషయాలన్నీ జాగ్రత్తగా గమనించుకోవాలి, వాటన్నిటినీ మనసులోకి ఎక్కించుకోవాలి. విని మనసులోకి ఎక్కించుకోవడం, పుస్తకాలు చదివి ఆ విషయాలను మనసులోకి ఎక్కించుకోవాలి. అయితే ఈ మధ్యలో ఒక చిన్న విషయం జరగాల్సి ఉంది. అది ఏమిటంటే, దట్ ఈస్ నథింగ్ బట్ ద స్టడీ స్కిల్స్, నేమ్లీ processing the information. When a lot of information is received, whether through listening or through reading, whatever may be the process, whatever the kind of information, the way of information you receive, you should possess required skills for selecting information, separating and retaining the ideas for our purpose. And these skills are all called study skills. These study skills are namely note taking and note making. Study skills help learners more efficiently and independently. ఈ స్టడీ స్కిల్స్ బాగా చేతనైన వాళ్ళకి నోట్ మేకింగ్ అండ్ నోట్ టేకింగ్ బాగా చేతనై ఉంటే ఇండిపెండెంట్గా వాళ్ళు ఎఫిషియెంట్గా చదువుకోవచ్చు, గొప్పగా విషయ పరిజ్ఞానం సంపాదించవచ్చు. దే బికమ్ ఇండిపెండెంట్ లెర్నర్స్, సెల్ఫ్ లెర్నర్స్. సో ద స్టడీ స్కిల్స్ హెల్ప్ ద లెర్నర్స్ టు ఇంప్రూవ్ దేర్ నాలెడ్జ్ ఆఫ్ ద సబ్జెక్ట్ మ్యాటర్ and improve their ability to learn other subjects independently without getting guidance from others. So, in order to become independent learners, these study skills will help them. What are those study skills? Note taking and note making. Study skills enable the learners to develop self-learning techniques. And note taking and note making are the most important study skills. Now, let us discuss each of them in detail. What are those study skills? Note taking and note making. What is the note taking? When you listen to a lecture, then you note down the important points, you take down important points, and afterwards you can prepare your own notes, detailed notes, that is note taking. When you listen to a lecture, you take down points, that is note taking. When you read a book or a journal or something like that, then you prepare notes, you make notes, that is note making. Now, let us discuss in detail each of these two, note taking and note making. What is note taking? Note taking is the part of the listening skills. Here the learner takes notes of the important points from the teacher's teaching or from any other's talk or lecture. Note taking is an important study and writing skill. ఈ నోట్ టేకింగ్ అనేటువంటిది ఎవరైనా టీచర్ పాఠం చెప్తుంటే ఈవెన్ ఇన్ ద లోయర్ క్లాసెస్ ఆర్ హయ్యర్ క్లాసెస్ యూ క్యాన్ ట్రైన్ దెమ్ అప్. Teachers have to train up the learners so that they develop this technique of note taking. They should note down all important points when they listen to the teacher's teaching, or in the higher classes or in the colleges and universities, the lecturers go on delivering lecture, and there the students have to note down important points, and those important points are to be kept in view always, and they should be in a position to elaborate them whenever it is required. So, that way note taking is an important study as well as a writing skill. It implies a quick jotting down of important points from a lecture, especially at college and university level. The student has to follow the lecture carefully and be very attentive. At the time of listening to the lecture and noting down the important points, the learner should be very careful and attentive. If the learner is not attentive, important points he will miss in noting down. If the important points are missed, what is the use of listening to the lecture or attending to a teacher's lesson, whatever it is? It is all of no use unless the individual is attentive totally while attending a lecture. For jotting down all important points from a lecture, the learner has to follow the lecture very carefully and be very attentive. Taking down notes demands full attention, accuracy and alertness on the part of the listener. The listener or the learner must be alert to the pattern of thought. The pattern of thought, its direction and development. And all these things must be able to discriminate. So, the learner must be alert to the pattern of the thought, number one, its direction, number two, number three, development, and also must be able to discriminate what's important and what is unimportant. This discrimination also is very, very important, is very, very essential for the listener or the learner. So, అటెన్షన్ పెట్టకపోయినట్లయితే ఈ నాలుగింట్లో ఏదైనా మిస్ కావచ్చు. ఏమిటవి? ప్యాటర్న్ ఆఫ్ థాట్. ఏ విషయాలు ఏ విధంగా ఏ వరుస క్రమంలో చెప్పుకొస్తున్నారు ఆ వరుస క్రమాన్ని గమనించాలి. ఇట్స్ డైరెక్షన్, ఏ వైపు వెళ్తున్నారు, తర్వాత డెవలప్మెంట్ ఎలాగా, ఇవన్నీ కూడా గమనించి అవన్నీ నోట్ చేసుకోవాలంటే totally, the individual should pay total attention and accuracy, alertness, these things are very, very essential on the part of the learner. So, if the learner is alert and the learner is paying full attention, then what happens? He will be able to catch the pattern of thought as the lesson is going on or the lecture is going on. He will be attentive to catch the pattern of thought, number one, and how it is proceeding, the direction in which it is proceeding, the lecture, and then how the topic is being developed. All these things he will be noting down, and at the same time what are important things and what are not important. That discrimination also the individual should be in a position to do. So, these are all the essential things the learner has to do while going with note taking, the process of note taking. First, the learner should prepare themselves for careful listening. Unless careful listening is there, he may not be able to pay good attention, number one. Then he may not be able to know the thought process of the lecturer or the teacher or whoever is delivering the lecture. The thought process is to be noted down. And then of course, the day on which he is listening and taking down the notes, the topic, the day, topic and the speaker delivering the lecture. Okay? These things also has to note down. Then listen attentively, paying attention to the main theme, that is the thought process. Then the learner should be clear about the purpose. If the learner is aware of the purpose, the important points will be noted down accordingly, and it saves the time and energy of the learner. Otherwise, it would be just waste of time attending the lecture or the lesson, whatever. So, if the time and energy are not to be wasted, the learner should be clear about the purpose, and the learner should also be aware of the purpose, and all the important points he has to note down. Follow the technique of skipping. What is this skipping? That is leaving out what is not important and not relevant to the learner. During the lecture, the lecturer may try to give some certain examples, and while giving examples, the lecturer may just go outside the area of the topic. And at times, the lecturer, the orator, the teacher may try to entertain sometimes the listeners or the learners. These are all not useful for the purpose of the learner, serious learner. So, such of the unimportant things the learner should be skipping while noting down the important points. All the unimportant points should be skipped. Then decide the correct sequence of the points and organize the points systematically. So, while noting down or jotting down important points, he should be very careful, and afterwards all the important points are to be systematically organized, and thorough notes, complete notes may be prepared later, leisurely. But for that purpose, important points ought to be jotted down while the individual is listening to the lecture or the lesson. Most of our learning comes from lectures, seminars and discussions. So, each lecturer will have a different style. Learners should be able to adjust to their presentation, language speed, accent, etc. So, the style of presentation, the language and the accent, the individual's accent may be different. Speed with which the individual is delivering lecture, and all these things may vary from one individual to the other. But while listening to these lectures, etc., the learners should be in a position to adjust to the presentation, language speed and accent of the individual lecturers. Okay? Otherwise, he may not be able to catch the important points for his purpose of note taking and note making later. Points to ponder while taking notes. What should be kept in view? It is important to leave some space in the margin so that the learners can add later what they missed. Sometimes the learners might be missing some of the points. So, to note down those points, we can leave some margin, and then the learner need not think about grammatically accepted sentences while noting down the information or taking down the information while listening as the individual listens to the lecture. So, while taking down the information, it is important mostly, and all other things can be taken care of later. First, he need not worry about grammatically accepted sentences. That means, he need not worry, the individual learner need not worry about grammatically correctness of the sentences he is writing, because listening and catching hold of important points and the logical development, etc., he should pay attention. The learner should pay attention to these important things, but not the grammatical aspects. If he is trying to keep attention on the grammatical aspects, he may be missing important points in the lecture. So, he need not worry about grammatically accepted sentences. He need not worry about grammar and all as he is noting down the important things while listening to a lecture. And the learner can drop unnecessary words and use abbreviations and symbols, because it is a kind of jotting down important points. Then while jotting down important points, see, look, because it can be written as dot or cause. For that is, you can put IE. For the purpose of namely, some giving examples, instead of writing down namely, you can write down VIZ. And then more than or greater than, you can show with the symbol, even less than. Likewise, some of the abbreviations are shown to you. You can think of several other abbreviations. While noting down all the important points, you need not, it is not necessary on the part of the listener or the learner to note down all the things in detail. You should note down the important things. While noting down important things, he should not miss the sequence. So, he should be very quick in noting down the important points. For that purpose, the learner can drop unnecessary words and you can also use abbreviations and symbols. Sometimes note taking can be diagrammatic also. For instance, something is going on human physiology. He might be listening to some disorders developed in the human body. Instead of writing down all the things, he can note down all the defects, etc., by going for a diagram. So, diagrammatic representation, he can go with, the learner can go with diagrammatic representation, and in the diagram he can note down all important things. So, these are all some of the important points to be kept in view while note taking. Note taking is not only a study skill, but also a skill necessary in the official meetings. The person who takes down minutes of a meeting should be good at note taking. Compared to note making, note taking is not easier. Note making is after studying on a topic, after studying, going through a book or a journal, something like that, a printed material, you can note down important things and prepare notes. That is note making. There he can go through the material any number of times so as to arrive at important things. Whereas note taking, this happens only as the individual listens to a lecture. He cannot ask the individual repeat again and again. Instead, he should be fast in noting down or jotting down important things as and when the listener or the learner listens to the lecture or the lesson being dealt with. We cannot listen to the same lecture again and again unless the lecture is recorded. The learners have to make the best use of time when they are listening and taking down the most important points which help them in effective learning. So, effective learning takes place only when the individual learner takes down the most important points in a logical order. This happens only when the individual pays good attention. There is no possibility for the learner to listen to the same lecture again and again unless it is recorded. Okay? So, attention and then keeping good concentration is mostly required on the part of the learner in the case of note taking. What are the advantages of this note taking? That we shall discuss. Note taking helps the learners to learn and understand. It also helps them to concentrate while listening to lectures. So, as the individuals attend to lectures, listening to lectures, they have to concentrate. It is quite essential on the part of the listener as well as the learner to concentrate on the lecture, what he is listening to. So, because of complete concentration on the lecture being delivered or being listened to, it helps the learners to understand thoroughly and thereby learn unknown things. and they get into the habit of taking down notes during all the study activities such as listening to talks, lectures, or talks broadcast. Talks whatever broadcast over radio or television, you can be listening and you can develop the skill of noting down as you listen to the talks or the lectures. You will develop that skill or habit of noting down all important things, and it will develop in you the necessary ability needed for a learner. So, every learner should try to develop this ability of taking down notes as and when the individual tries to listen to a lecture being delivered in front of him or lecture whatever he listens to over radio or television. So, these are the advantages of note taking. Note taking helps the learners to learn and understand things whatever they listen to. It also helps them to concentrate while listening to lectures. They get into the habit of taking down notes during the study activities such as listening to talks, listening to lectures, or talks broadcast over radio or television. Kanuka ఇక్కడ ఏమిటంటే నోట్ టేకింగ్ అనేటువంటి దానివల్ల ఏమిటి లాభాలు ఉన్నాయి? ప్రధానంగా ఆ వినడం అనేటువంటి దాని మీద మంచిగా కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ చేయడం అనేది అలవాటు అవుతుంది. కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేయగలిగితేనే ఇంపార్టెంట్ పాయింట్స్ నోట్ చేసుకోగలుగుతాం. వాటిలన్నింటినీ ఒక లాజికల్ ఆర్డర్లో మెయింటైన్ చేయడం ఇదంతా చేతనవుతుంది. కనుక main advantage of note taking is to develop the learning ability in the learner through listening. And the listeners are more likely to remember information if they have made a good set of notes. Because the notes is prepared by them as they listen, they can as well remember or memorize those things very easily. And notes can also act a permanent record, and reading the notes will help to bring back the original experience. ఆ నోట్స్ మళ్ళీ చదువుతున్నప్పుడల్లా తనకు ఆ వెనక ఏమేమి విషయాలు ఎట్లా విన్నది అదంతా కూడా గుర్తుకొస్తుంది. కనుక ఈ నోట్ టేకింగ్ అనే దానివలన చాలా ప్రధానమైన విషయం ఏమిటి? తాను ఒక మంచి లెర్నర్గా తయారవుతాడు. తాను తయారు చేసుకున్న నోట్స్ తానే చేసుకున్నది కాబట్టి దాన్ని 1-2 సార్లు కనుక చూసినట్లయితే మనసులో అది పూర్తిగా ముద్రితం అయిపోతుంది. ఎప్పుడు అడిగినా ఆ అంశం మీద తాను ధారాళంగా తాను మాట్లాడేయగలుగుతాడు, తాను చెప్పగలుగుతాడు. పరీక్షల్లో మంచిగా రాయగలుగుతాడు, ప్రజెంట్ చేయగలుగుతాడు. సో in this kind of note-taking ability should be cultivated in the learners right from school stage, and that will be developed further as the individuals grow up and enter college and university classes. Who are experts in taking down notes as they listen to the lectures and prepare notes later on in detail, there is every likelihood that they would fare well in examinations and prove themselves to be better learners. Okay? Now we shall move on to the other study skill of note making. What's this note making? Can be defined as the ability to make out important points and prepare notes from books, reports, reference books, magazines, articles, journals, newspapers, etc. From all the printed material, if you study and prepare notes, that is called note making. And this kind of thing is very, very essential, and this skill is very, very important to all learners. And this skill is to be acquired by all learners, because it is this particular skill that the learners need to be taught right from school level, because they will have to use this skill on many occasions, like attending examinations, attending interviews, delivering a lecture or presenting a paper at a seminar, etc. So, whether it is a school student or a college student, it is immaterial. All learners, all students should try to develop this skill of note making. After going through a book or a journal or an article or something like from reference books, anything of that kind, any printed material, if the individual goes through that material and prepares his own notes, he can as well memorize that notes, because it is totally prepared by him. It can be memorized very easily, and the individual can deliver a lecture, the individual can present a paper at a seminar, and so on. And even while attending interviews also, because he is thorough with the subject, any kind of question he can be answer. He will be able to answer any kind of question on the subject. Similarly, during examinations also, the individual will be able to answer any kind of question, because he prepares notes after going through the printed material, whatever is prescribed for him. So, it demands this note making, the skill of note making demands the skill of scanning as well as skipping to get the main points while reading. While reading, there may be unnecessary things. Those things are to be skipped. All important things are to be cut hold of through scanning, and it requires a combination of digestion, learning, and putting into practice one's organizing abilities. Organization is a very important feature in making notes. Organizations means organizing the important points in a logical order. That way, he should be able to prepare his own notes. That is the note making skill. Simplicity is the key to good note making. At the same time, thoroughness of the subject also shouldn't be ignored. Simplicity అంటే సంక్షిప్తంగా ఉండాలి. సంక్షిప్తం అని చెప్పేసి ఇంపార్టెంట్ పాయింట్స్ వదిలేయడానికి లేదు. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైమ్ థరోనెస్ ఆఫ్ ద సబ్జెక్ట్ షుడ్ ఆల్సో బి ఇగ్నోర్డ్. థరోనెస్ ఉండాలి, సింపుల్గా ఉండాలి. అంటే అనవసరమైన విషయాలు లేకుండా అవసరమైన విషయాలన్నీ చక్కగా ఒక ఆర్డర్లో తాను ప్రజెంట్ చేయడం. చదువుతున్నటువంటి పుస్తకంలో ఉన్న విషయాలన్నీ కూడా తాను ఒక ఆర్డర్లో మలుచుకొని అనవసర విషయాలను వదిలిపెట్టేస్తూ అవసరమైన విషయాలన్నింటినీ చక్కగా తాను ఒక వరుస క్రమంలో నోట్ చేసుకుంటూ చక్కని నోట్స్ తయారు చేసుకోవడం. జస్ట్ లైక్ నోట్ టేకింగ్, వన్ మస్ట్ బి ఏబుల్ టు డిస్టింగ్విష్ బిట్వీన్ వాట్స్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ అండ్ వాట్ ఈస్ నాట్. నోట్ టేకింగ్ అయినా అది కావాలి, నోట్ మేకింగ్ అయినా ఈ స్కిల్ కావాలి. ఏది అన్నెసరీ థింగ్స్ని అవాయిడ్ చేయాలి, అవసరమైన విషయాల్ని పికప్ చేయాలి. వాటిని చక్కని ఆర్డర్లో మలచాలి, ఒక ఆర్డర్లో పెట్టుకోవాలి. సో ఫర్ బోత్ నోట్ టేకింగ్ అండ్ నోట్ మేకింగ్, this skill is very, very essential. Skipping unnecessary things and arranging the important points in a logical order. That is a very must. There are three basic forms of note making. One, paragraph, that means making paragraph. All important things which can be attached together can form into a paragraph. It is part of written test consisting of a group of sentences dealing with a single theme. So, written text లో ఈ పారాగ్రాఫ్ అనేటువంటిది ఏమిటి? ఒక సింగిల్ థీమ్ మీద ఒక సింగిల్ ఆలోచన మీద డెవలప్మెంట్ ఉన్నటువంటి అంశాలన్నింటినీ ఒక పారాగ్రాఫ్లో పెడతాం. ఇంకొక వేరే అంశం వచ్చినప్పుడు అది ఇంకొక పారాగ్రాఫ్లోకి వెళ్తుంది. అలాగా పారాగ్రాఫ్ మేకింగ్, that is one of the important things in note making. The second thing is series of sentences. Writing a series of sentences basing on a single idea. ఒకే ఐడియా మీద ఒక వరుస క్రమంలో విషయాలన్నీ రాసుకోవడం. Outline. It's part of writing the gist or summary of a topic or story or a poem, whatever. So, outline, that means gist or summary. ఆ టాపిక్ మీద ఒక సమ్మరీ తయారు చేసుకోవడం. So, these are the three basic things to be kept in view while note making. Okay? Then, what's the process involved in note making? Let us brief the process. Write the title of the text or chapter, whatever you are reading, that on which you are going with note making. You write the title first or the chapter. Then read and reread the text or the chapter for understanding and analyzing. There you have to read between the lines. What is this reading between the lines? You read and reread the text, the printed material, for thorough understanding, and while trying to thoroughly understand the content, you should be in a position to analyze the sequence. And reading between the lines, that means not only just going with the external information, but also inferential thinking. Going with inferential thinking is reading between the lines. And the reader, the learner, should also be in a position to capture the ideas of the writer, because you are reading the lines written by a writer. There the writer expresses his or her ideas. You are now the reader. As you read the written material, you should be in a position to capture the ideas of the writer, not the external meaning, whatever is understood, but the ideas behind, what are the actual ideas of the writer, that you have to capture. For that, reading between the lines is very, very essential. That means trying to understand the inner meanings, what the actual message of the writer, that you should be, the learner should be in a position to capture. Important and relevant points have to be marked and separated from unnecessary, unimportant points, irrelevant points. Then arrange those points in a logical order. Afterwards, you review immediately after writing, make changes if necessary, and finalize your notes. Then, the notes made should be neither brief nor elaborate. And you should be clear and precise in making notes. The notes prepared is more valuable for examination preparation, and the teachers should make notes for teaching classes. Teachers also have to prepare notes for teaching classes. And for preparing their own notes also, they should have this skill of note making. Students who are appearing for examination, on the examination day whole book he can't go through. So, for the purpose of examination preparation, right from the beginning of the academic year, the learners should try to prepare their own notes on each and every topic. And these notes, whatever they prepare, should neither be elaborate nor brief. It should be precise. Be clear and precise while making notes. And that way, whatever notes you prepare in a precise manner and in clear way, that will be useful and that will be very, very valuable for you to face the examination. And make good presentation and perform well in the examination. Note making helps the individuals in increasing their speed in reading and writing, organizing ideas and presenting ideas in their own words. The students get acquainted with writing synopsis, brief notes, minutes of a meeting, etc. in their later life. So, this note making will help the individuals in increasing their speed in reading, because if you read speedily, you will be able to pick up the important points. Whatever important points you will be able to pick up only when you go with speed reading. And your organizing ability will improve, organizing ideas, ability to organize ideas, and ability to present the ideas in a logical way, that gets improved. So, it will definitely help the students in writing synopsis, brief notes and minutes of a meeting, even when you become an elder attending some meetings. Okay. Points to ponder while note making. What are the important points you should keep in view? Notes should be short and related. Take only relevant facts. Avoid repetition of a point. Avoid too many illustrations. One example is usually enough. So, these are all the important points to be kept in view while going with note making. You should not repeat points. Repetition should be avoided. Take down only the relevant facts, which are irrelevant to the topic, they should be avoided. Notes should be very short and related to the topic concerned. And then going with too many examples is not required. Just one example is enough whenever you are trying to illustrate. Abbreviations, some certain conventional symbols and short forms you can be using in your notes. While making notes, you can use abbreviations, some conventional symbols, so that you can go with them very easily while delivering a lecture or attending an exam, whatever. Because those are all things done by you, you know what they are. For briefing purpose, you can make use of these abbreviations and conventional symbols, etc. Don't use the same vocabulary used by the writer. As far as possible, try to simplify and write the notes in your own words. So, it is always better to catch the ideas of the writer and note down the notes in your own way, that means in your own words. You need not repeat the same words used by the writer. That is not important. Ideas are important. The writer conveys his ideas by selecting his own vocabulary, whatever for the purpose. And you, the learner, after catching hold the information, whatever conveyed by the writer, you can express the same ideas in your own words. What are the advantages of note making? Learners will process the information more deeply as they think about the key points and therefore have a greater understanding of the text and will be more likely to remember the information in future. So, the learners, while processing the information by preparing the notes, they think about the important points, key points, and they try to understand those particular important points thoroughly well, and they will be able to remember because they try to understand and pay more and more attention on those important points. They may be able to remember very easily all those things later. If they have to stop part way through the task, they just need not reread their notes before starting again. They just need to reread their notes before starting. Suppose the individual is going with some topic, noting down all important points. Suppose he may stop midway and part way through the task of writing down the notes. Then once again, if he sits to complete that work later on, he need not start again from the beginning. He can just reread whatever the notes he has prepared and then proceed further. They will end up with a summary of the chapter which can be kept for the reference and revision. And towards the end of the notes, he can write down the summary of the chapter or summary of the topic, whatever, for reference and revision purpose. The notes, whatever the individual prepares, provide a record of information for future use. He need not read the book once again. Whatever notes he has prepared, the learner has prepared, will serve as a record of information whenever he wants to refer. Improve understanding by choosing what is useful and discarding the irrelevant. He will develop the attitude of understanding by choosing what is useful for his purpose and discarding the irrelevant things. మనకు అవసరమైనవి పట్టుకోవడము, అనవసరమైనవి వదిలేయడము అనేటువంటి ఒక మంచి యాటిట్యూడ్ డెవలప్ అవుతుంది ఈ నోట్ మేకింగ్ ద్వారా. ఎంతసేపు ఎవరో తయారు చేసినటువంటి గైడ్లు, నోట్స్లు అవి చదివి పరీక్షలకు వెళ్ళి మంచి మార్కులు సంపాదించాలని అనుకోవడము లెర్నర్స్కు సరైన పద్ధతి కాదు. తమ కావలసినటువంటి నోట్స్ను ప్రింటెడ్ మెటీరియల్ తాను చదువుకుని తాను తయారు చేసుకుంటే ఈ మంచి లక్షణాలన్నీ కూడా వస్తాయి. ఈ రైట్ యాటిట్యూడ్ డెవలప్ అవుతుంది. ఏది అనవసరమైన విషయాల్ని వదిలేయడం, అవసరమైన విషయాల్ని పట్టుకోవడం, వాటిని ఒక లాజికల్ ఆర్డర్లో అరేంజ్ చేసుకోవడం, దాన్ని బాగా మనసులో మెమరైజ్ చేయడం. తాను తయారు చేసిన నోట్స్ తాను మెమరైజ్ చేసుకోవడం చాలా ఈజీ. ఒకసారి చూసుకుంటే అది బాగా మనసులో ప్రింట్ అయి ఉంటుంది. ఒకసారి మనసులో ప్రింట్ అయినటువంటి విషయం దశాబ్దాల తరబడి కూడా అలాగా మనసులో నిలిచిపోయి ఉంటుంది. సో preparing one's own notes will be useful for the learners. That way, It helps the process of memorizing also. It stimulates the brain into thinking about the material in a critical and creative ways and prompting new ideas. So, it stimulates the brain into thinking about the material in a critical way and a creative way, and thereby new ideas can be generated. It helps to go with the process of planning and preparing assignments. The process of planning, process of preparing assignments. Teachers have to prepare assignments to be given to the students. So, teachers should be in a position to prepare their own notes. So, this is useful not only for the learners, even for the teachers also. The techniques and the skill of note making is useful both to the teachers as well as the learners. Wish you all the best.